All right, so today we're going to talk about creating cultures, creating spaces of trust and psychological safety. And this is actually top of mind because I just got done, when I'm recording this, I just got done hosting our monthly executive forum. So my organization Savvy, we host a monthly executive forum just about every month. Sometimes it's about every 6 weeks, so sometimes it falls different. But we've been doing this for several years. And if you're not already signed up and you are an executive level leader within an organization, then definitely pause this episode right now, go down to the show notes and sign up for our next executive forum coming up, because we would love to have you. And what these executive forums are, they're free virtual conversations, like I said, where we bring together executive level leaders that are experiencing things in organizations, and we talk about critical topics from retention and engagement to, how do you lead your organization through the AI era, to upskilling and reskilling your leaders, to a topic today, which was around trust and psychological safety. So definitely for those of you listening who are within organizations, or you're building your organization, you're building your business with where you actually have team members, things like that, we would love to have you and see if this is a good fit for you to join us. And for those of you who are not within organizations, you're listening and you might be a solopreneur, entrepreneur, small business owner, I still really want you to tune into this conversation because it's so important. If you are thinking of growing your team, or even as you create spaces, if you run, coaching programs or groups, or you have communities or things like that, this conversation is really important around trust and psychological safety. And so I'm going to actually share here on the episode a little bit of what we talked about in this conversation today, why this is so important, some warning signs to keep out for, especially if you are a leader of a team, how to know that this is something that needs to be addressed. And then how do you actually go about solving this, and what to avoid and where to go from here. So I'm going to share a little bit of a high level recap of what we talked about in the executive forum. And what I love about these spaces is, yes, the goal is that I can come in and I can share some research around what we're seeing, but also what we're seeing work with our clients, conversations we're having with our clients, but also it's a space for others to come and to share ideas. So today we had, the chat was blown up with lots of comments and resources and people connecting on LinkedIn and sharing books that they like. And then also people unmuting themselves when we had some opportunity for open dialogue and sharing like what they're struggling with right now around this and what they're doing. And we had some really, really interesting ideas that people are doing to actually put this into practice. And so love just being able to create these spaces to connect people, because as a leader, whether you're someone who leads a small team, or if you're a leader in a big organization, like it can feel lonely. Like the more and more you grow, the more you grow up the ladder, so to say, or your role, it kind of expands. It can feel lonely to have people. And yes, if you can find people within your organization, it's amazing. But when you can talk to people outside of that space and get ideas for what they're doing, like that's why we intentionally put ourselves in rooms virtually or in person with people from different places, from different organizations, so that you can see what's working for them and get ideas. So that's really the whole idea around these executive forums. And so I want to talk about this one because a couple things in terms of like warning signs, and some of the people on here were sharing, when you think of having a trusting and psychologically safe culture. So again, this could be your own team that you lead. It could be kind of bigger picture, your organization, where this could just, again, be, do I have trusting and psychologically safe relationships in my life? My friends, my family, the people that I choose to hang out with, like, do I feel, and some of the things that people were sharing, do I feel like I can be open? Do I feel like I can respectfully disagree, which we're going to talk about a lot? Do I feel like people value my opinion? Do I feel heard? Do I feel okay failing at something? Do I feel okay saying I don't know? Do I feel like I have relationships that I can be authentic? Like, these were some of the words that people were saying. And I think in general, as a society, we could all agree that this is something that we are struggling with. The amount of trust, a lot of people are saying we're in a trust recession, especially from like a small business standpoint with AI. You don't know what's real and what's not real on social media, online. Content people are putting out there, work that people are doing. Is this real? Is this your voice? So we're having trust issues with people. And also from, more an economical, political standpoint, people aren't trusting, and there's a lot of me versus you, and a lot of people feeling like they need to agree. And so not only are we feeling this on like a big macro level in the world, we're also then feeling it in potentially in our organizations and our teams and then our own friends and family. And I think what's really interesting, so I think I've shared this on the podcast before, but my husband and I have gone through just like we went through this couples course through our church last year, and then we're going through it again this year. It's just really great. It's called Relate Well, and just helps you, have healthy conflict and have conversations, and it gives us a lot of great tools. And one of the things that the gentleman who leads this has said is he's like, we've lost the ability to agree to disagree agreeably. To agree to disagree agreeably. And like when I hear that, you got to think about it for a second. Like that is so true. It's okay to disagree with people. We don't all need to agree. We're all very different people. We have different backgrounds. We have different cultures. We have different roles. All of those different things. But it seems as though I like to be more of an optimistic, but it seems as though many people have lost the ability to disagree respectfully. And so that was a big part of our conversation as well. And so when we talk about psychological safety, there's a lot of different definitions. One of the ones that we use, so Savvy, we're a boutique leadership development firm, and we partner with small business owners all the way up through large organizations to help them elevate their leadership capabilities, to help with high performance. So whether that's through high performance coaching, through running leadership programs, I'll go in and speak at conferences and leadership events. And so one of the courses that we have, one of the sessions that we have is building trust and psychological safety. And that can be a standalone course, or it actually is also part of our bigger high performing team alignment program that includes other things like developing a shared team vision, having healthy, effective team communication, team blueprint, and accountability. So it can either be a standalone course or as part of this bigger, more robust program that we do. And one of the definitions that we use is from Dr. Amy Edmondson, who wrote this book, The Fearless Organization. And that definition was psychological safety is the belief that you can speak up, share ideas, ask questions, and admit mistakes without fear or embarrassment, punishment, or rejection. It creates an environment where people feel respected, valued, and included. And then she also had shared, it's not about being nice, it's about giving candid feedback, openly admitting mistakes, and learning together. And this is, there's so many pieces of this that we could dive into, but so many people struggle with admitting mistakes, with failing. And part of that is our own self-confidence and imposter syndrome. Like if you're already not feeling good enough, I think one of the things I coach leaders on a lot, whether they're new leaders all the way up through C-suite, is this like imposter syndrome. Like, do I belong here? Am I good enough? And when that is running the show, it's really hard for us to admit mistakes. When that's running the show, it's really hard to think outside the box and be innovative and be okay making a mistake, taking risks, and goodness, like we definitely, if we do make a mistake, we don't want anyone to know about it, right? You would want to try and like cover that up and hide that essentially. And the thing is especially when I do one-on-one coaching with leaders and we can get to the root of that, and we can get to that feeling like I'm not good enough, we open up so much more space for you to be willing to take risks, for you to be willing to admit mistakes, for you to be in a place to create a space and culture where other people feel like they can make mistakes. And actually, it was really interesting on this forum that we just hosted. Someone unmuted and shared, because we were talking about how do you take it from this big concept to actually having people feel safe? Like, what are the day-to-day things you do? And one of our participants and attendees shared that at her organization, I believe it was like a tech startup. And she said that they'll do essentially where like even the C-suite, they'll have all staff are invited and they'll essentially share all their mess ups. Like they will share in front of everybody mistakes that they've made at the organization, in their careers, there or elsewhere, what they learned. I was like, what an amazing idea to really walk the talk of being a vulnerable and transparent leader and giving permission to other people to do the same. And so one of the questions I have for you to think about wherever you're at, is like, am I a safe space for people? My friends, my family, my team, my whoever it is, like, am I a safe space? Do people feel safe speaking up, admitting mistakes, trying things, failing at things? And do they know I'm going to give them feedback, but also be able to hold recognition for them as well? So that's one of my challenges for you to think about. And we also were talking about the difference between trust and psychological safety and how they really work together. A lot of the people who were on the forum, I would say, I think it was like 33% or so. We did a little poll of like, do you think your organization is currently a trusting and psychologically safe culture? And about 33% of those that were attending said yes. And then the majority of people said they're working on it. Like, and then when we asked them, do you think your organization would benefit by intentionally working to build more trust and psychological safety? All of them said yes. And someone actually in the chat was like, I would say absolutely, right? So we know that this is really important. And how do you know that this could be an issue for you? If it's personally, if you feel, if you're looking for kind of red flags that maybe you're not a safe space for people, it might look like people not coming to you to be able to be open and honest, or maybe they're just very surface level with you. It might look like them not wanting to own up and like admit mistakes. It might just kind of be this, you know, when someone's just like, everything's great, everything's fine. And you're always like, but is it really? Like, it almost seems very superficial. That it might be their own thing going on, or it might be an indication that they don't feel like you're a safe space for them. They might be hesitant to share feedback with you or to give you feedback on things. From a team standpoint and from like an organization standpoint, it might look like turnover is increasing. Like, people aren't participating in meetings. They're hesitant to speak up. There's either a ton of HR complaints or there's none. When people go silent, that's an issue as well, because they don't feel safe to speak up. People are playing it safe. If there's this fear of risk and failure, this is an indication to you. And the impact of these things is you lose collaboration and connection. Innovation is going to stall, even if you're investing in innovation. You're going to see people disengaging. You're going to see AI and tech rollouts. They're not going to go as well. There's going to be more anxiety around them. And as a result, your business is going to be affected. Your ability to attract, retain, and engage your talent, like all of those things are going to be affected. And why we're seeing this problem accelerating right now, and you might be feeling this too, is technology is increasing and our uncertainty is increasing. And the thing is when our uncertainty increases, it often leads to fear increasing for many people because it's just change. It can lead to defensive behaviors increasing. Silence can increase. People can kind of like retreat and like revert into themselves. Experimentation can decrease. If we're uncertain about things, if we're not sure, we're less likely, or if we also don't feel like it's safe to do that. And so when we talk about, there's all this talk about technology, and technology itself is not what's eroding trust. It's the leadership behavior during those technology changes that is. And I was also sharing this Edelman study. It's this 2025 Trust Barometer, and it was really doing a study on employees and trusting their organization. So this is a global survey that has measured trust in institutions since 1999. And what they found in their research is that the globally, so this is globally, the number of employees who trust their employer to do what is right fell 3 points. So to 75% in 2025. There's a lot of different things driving that, but why that is so important is because the Great Place to Work survey, they've been measuring employee trust for 30 years. They've been researching this. And what they found is that companies that consistently have high measures of trust dramatically outperform their competitors on important business metrics. So from employee retention to stock market performances. So one of the things, and what they also found on there was that companies that make the Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For list, compiled annually by this Great Place to Work, they outperform the stock market by a factor of nearly 4. And so what this really tells us is that these aren't just nice to have. Like sometimes we'd be like, oh, this is a soft skills thing, or work on that fluffy, that trust and that safety thing later. Or, once we really focus on these business strategies and initiatives, then maybe we'll talk about that. And the challenge here is that these aren't nice to have. These are critical because these are your competitive advantage. These are the things. And there's this research that has been out there so Google had done this Project Aristotle, and it was actually back in 2012. So this isn't new. This isn't a new thing. But they had done this research starting in 2012. And what they did is that they wanted to identify the patterns and the behaviors within teams that led to high performance. And so starting in 2012, they studied 180 of their teams, and for multiple years, they studied these teams. And what they found actually really surprised them. What they thought was going to drive team performance was, the successful combination of high performers, experienced managers, and unlimited resources, like unlimited free resources. That's what they expected was going to drive performance. And what they actually ended up finding out was that psychological safety was the number one predictor of high performing teams. And the research is still ongoing, and psychological safety is still one of the top predictors of high performing teams. So we know that this matters and that directly affects the business results, and that this really is the competitive advantage. So whether you are a small business owner or you are a leader in a very large organization, this is a critical topic because these are the things that are really driving the bottom line for your business. Is, do people feel like they can trust you? Do they feel like they can trust your organization? Do they feel like they can challenge you on things if you have a team? And are they going to drive the new innovative initiatives that you might be trying to do? So when we talked about what are some things that you can start doing, some of the things that were actually shared on the forum and that I shared as well is, first you need to identify, like, is this a problem for me personally? If it's something I'm trying to address, is this a problem within my organization? You need to create a vision of what does having a trusting and psychologically safe culture really look like? Like, what does it mean, not for just our organization? What does it look like for my team specifically? And once you have that defined, then you need to have clear expectations and high accountability. So we're actually right now working with an organization on helping them identify their leadership skills gap and help to improve their culture. And we're doing one-on-one insights interviews with a bunch of different leaders in different departments. And one of the number one words that we are hearing from people that they're looking for is accountability. They're looking for accountability from the top down and how their leaders are holding people accountable. And so we need to hold people accountable, and we need to invite open discussions. And going back to that thing I said before of, like, we need to agree to disagree agreeably. We need to respectfully, have some type of, it's okay to respectfully dissent, what other people say. And also we need to create a space where it's okay to fail. It's okay to try things. And one of the ways that we support our clients with this is, first, it's getting clear on that baseline. So I say there's like this team diagnostic and assessing the baseline. If we want to see us actually moving the needle in this and having more trust and having more psychological safety on your team or your organization, first we need to know, where are we starting from? So that's the first thing that we'll do with teams, is we'll really do this team diagnostic and do an assessment, asking, specific targeted strategic questions to figure out where are you starting from so that we can then measure that. We also then work with teams to define, what does trust and psychological safety mean in your own words, in your own team context. And we identify what are some of the barriers. And it's hands-on, not just theory, not just practical, but like hands-on. What are some things that are barriers to us having trust? And what are some of the boosters? And how can we agree upon what are those team boosters that are going to help us build trust? And then there's this commitment to 1 to 2 key trust building behaviors that each person is going to be held accountable to, and measuring that, and then creating the plan to follow through on that. So those are some of the things that we had shared that we work with with teams on, whether these are small teams or these are bigger teams, or this is a company-wide initiative. And so really helping you to identify what are those trust moments, what does this look like in action, and how do we implement this, and what's going to be the ROI? Like, how does this tie to the bigger initiatives that you have as an organization or as a team? And red flags, like I'll say, like the red flags where you need to be like, hey, we need to watch out for this, is when you say it's a value, you say it's a priority, and then you don't do anything about it. Or you don't address times that people go against it. You don't address aggressive or unsafe behaviors, and then other people are going, well, I guess this really isn't a value. It also can go wrong when you're rolling out all of these new initiatives, these new tech, this new AI, but you're not addressing the human side of all of this. If you're doing sessions and doing workshops without reinforcement, or actually what does this look like in action? And so one of the key things that we always talk to people about is, first, you need to have leadership alignment. Like, you need to all agree and figure out, what does this look like for us? Why is this a priority? And sometimes it also includes having skills development for managers and leaders. So if you're tasking people with this, if it's going to be part of performance, or it's going to be part of a big initiative you're doing, there might be some gaps in leaders. You know, one thing we see a lot is people struggling having tough conversations, struggling not only admitting their own mistakes, but like holding space for their teams to admit mistakes, struggling to hold people accountable and have tough feedback. So that might be a gap that your managers, that your leaders, they need some training, they need some development on that, so that they can actually implement these things. And then we always talk about assessing and measuring. It's like, we had a baseline, and now as people start to implement that, let's see how they feel about those things, but also where are we seeing an increase in team performance. Just from like an accountability standpoint, I was just recently, I was having a one-on-one call with one of my clients. She's a director in like a sales position. And she was sharing with me that their quarterly sales were already up 20%. And when we dug into like, what do you think is contributing to that? One of the things she said, her and I have been working a lot on accountability, having tough conversations with people, holding people accountable to those things, having like follow-up and reinforcement, all those things. She said, one of the biggest reasons is because, you know, people are taking initiative, there's accountability for it, we have processes, they have support, and so that can go a long way to build that trust with people. So one of the things I would challenge you is, if you're somebody who, again, maybe just personally, these are some things for you to think about. Like, am I a safe space? Whether you are, also, do I feel like personally I have people that I can go to? Do you have friends, family, mentors, coaches, communities where you feel like you have true trust and psychological safety built? Because we personally need this. And if you don't, where can you find those? Where do you need to find those relationships? And then also flipping it around and going, am I that for other people? And especially if you're a leader in an organization or with your teams, really thinking through some of the things that I shared and what stood out for these other leaders at the executive forum about what you can be doing now and why this is so important, and realizing that this is, like I said, the number one indicator. The number one indicator of high performing teams is people feeling like they have psychological safety and trust, because they're willing to fail, they're willing to take risks, they're willing to admit the mistakes, and we move faster and more efficiently. So I would love to hear, hopefully this was helpful for you, whatever stage that you're at. If you're somebody who wants the full recap from the executive forum and some of the resources that shared, go ahead and send me a message. Send me an email and I would be happy to send that over for you. And again, go ahead and check out the show notes, sign up for our next executive forum. And definitely, if you are somebody who's looking for bringing this type of conversation, this type of session, this building trust and psychological safety to your team, or even our full high performing team program, let's talk about how we can bring this to you and to your teams.